This poster-like ad was probably prepared exclusively for publication in Mickey Mouse Magazine. It features art similar to, but not identical to, the one-sheet theatrical poster. More cartoons were planned for Donald and Gus Goose, but they were never produced. Fortunately for Gus, and those of us who are his fans, this comical character found a whole new career in the Disney comic books, starting as the farmhand on Grandma Duck's farm in 1950. The Silly Symphony Sunday page was the first Disney comic strip to showcase Donald. Published in 1934, it presented one of the first published views of the duck in an adaptation of Donald's debut film, The Wise Little Hen. Significantly, that Sunday comic adaptation was drawn by Al Taliaferro, who was to become Donald's premier comic strip artist. Presented here is the first of the Silly Symphony comics to star Donald in his own series, originally printed on August 30th, 1936. This series, drawn by Al Taliaferro, ran for nearly a year and a half and was a precursor to Donald's own comic strip. This Silly Symphony Sunday page introduced Donald's nephews to the world. It was comic strip artist Al Taliaferro's idea to give Donald 3 nephews, an inspiration he drew from the Happy Hooligan comic strip. This comic page was published in Sunday newspapers on October 17, 1937, 6 months before the nephews made their screen debut in movie theaters. This may account for the discrepancies regarding the nephew's mother. In the cartoon, she's Donald's sister, Dumbella, and in this comic, she's Cousin Della. Also note that by now, Donald was so popular that the Silly Symphony logo was dropped from the strip, even though it was still the comic's official title. Starting on February 7, 1938, Donald Duck became the star of his own daily comic strip. Distributed by King Features Syndicate, which had released Mickey Mouse's comic strip since its inception in 1930, Donald's comic was drawn by Al Taliaferro. In one of the great runs in comic strip history, Taliaferro would draw the Ducks comic for the next 30 years. Here and following are the strips for the very first week of publication. Bob Karp was the writer of these newspaper comic strips, chronicling Donald's everyday misadventures. Like artist Al Taliaferro, Bob Karp was to remain with the Ducks comic strip for over 3 decades. Note that the Donald Duck comic strip is mostly pantomime, reflecting its origins in animation, which emphasizes action and characterization over dialogue. Here is the first Sunday comic page of the Donald Duck comic strip. It was originally published on December 10, 1939. By 1936, Donald Duck's superstar status was reflected in his appearance on the cover of many issues of Mickey Mouse Magazine, the premier Disney publication of the 1930s. This February 1936 cover marks Donald's first, and the first time that any other character besides Mickey made a solo appearance on the cover of the Mouse's magazine. Reflecting his soaring popularity, Donald was named editor of Mickey Mouse Magazine in 1936. Donald didn't completely usurp Mickey on the cover of the Mouse's magazine. At times they appeared together, as on this football-themed cover from November 1936, where, as usual, Mickey has the upper hand. Starting in 1938, covers for Mickey Mouse Magazine were often based on publicity art for a particular cartoon, as on this January 1939 cover spotlighting Donald's Lucky Day. Donald was again featured on the cover of this transitional issue from September 1940, which transformed Mickey Mouse Magazine into an all-comics publication, mostly consisting of reprints of Donald's comic strip. With the next issue, the magazine became the very popular and long-running Walt Disney's Comics and Stories comic book. Here it is, the very first Disney comic book. Donald's enormous popularity quite naturally made the Duck the star of this comic book, published in 1938, the same year that comic book popularity really took off with the publication of the first of Superman's adventures. Though the contents were black and white reprints of Donald's newspaper Sunday comic pages, this primitive comic book started the Duck on a spectacular comic book career that continues today throughout the world. Published in 1940, this is the first Disney comic with all the attributes of a true comic, including color. Picking up where Mickey Mouse Magazine left off, Walt Disney's Comics and Stories became Disney's flagship comic book, and with very few exceptions, Donald has graced each cover since the first issue, published in October 1940. Still published today, Walt Disney's Comics and Stories is considered by comic book historians to be the best-selling U.S. comic book of all time. The demands of monthly publication led some early covers of Walt Disney's Comics and Stories to be adapted from publicity art, even for cartoons that had been released years before. This cover for the April 1941 issue features art for Donald and Pluto, a cartoon released in 1936. Some early issues of Walt Disney's Comics and Stories featured art by Donald newspaper comic strip artist Al Taliaferro, as in this cover for the June 1941 issue. Donald was such a huge star that a full-fledged movie actor profile was published in 1941. With tongue firmly in beak, this hardcover autobiography traced Donald's life from birth to success on the silver screen.